Hey there, my awesome listeners. Welcome back to another heart-pounding werewolf shifter romance that's going to leave you breathless and begging for more. I'm about to tell you the story of Zara Blackthorne, a fierce she-wolf who thought she had her life perfectly mapped out until one moonlit night changed everything. Picture this: the scent of pine and danger hanging heavy in the air, the sound of breaking glass echoing through an abandoned warehouse, and a woman whose entire world is about to be turned upside down by a pair of amber eyes that see straight through her soul. Zara never believed in the fated mate bond. She thought it was just pack propaganda designed to keep wolves in line. But what happens when fate intervenes with claws and fangs, forcing her to confront the one truth she spent her entire adult life denying? Chapter 1. The warehouse smelled like rust, motor oil, and secrets. Zara Blackthorne crouched behind a stack of metal crates, her enhanced hearing picking up every sound within a half-mile radius. The steady drip of water from a leaky pipe, the scurrying of rats in the walls, the deliberately quiet footsteps of someone trying very hard not to be heard. "This is a mistake," she whispered into her comm unit, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid October air. Intel was wrong. This place is supposed to be empty. Static crackled in her ear before her partner Marcus's voice came through. "Negative, Blackthorne. Our source was solid. The Crimson Fangs are using this location to store their illegal arms shipment. Get in, plant the tracker, get out." Zara's wolf stirred restlessly beneath her skin, every instinct screaming that something was off. She'd been with the Supernatural Crimes Unit for 5 years, long enough to trust her gut when it told her a mission was about to go sideways. The footsteps stopped. She held her breath, pressing her back against the cold metal, and closed her eyes to focus her supernatural senses. One heartbeat. Male. Strong. Moving with the controlled grace of a predator who knew exactly where his prey was hiding. Shit. The scent hit her then, wild and intoxicating, like thunderstorms and midnight forests. It rolled over her in waves, making her wolf whimper and pace inside her mind. Her skin began to tingle, heat flooding through her veins despite the warehouse's bone-deep chill. "No. No, no, no." Well. A voice like warm honey and sharp steel spoke from somewhere above her. "What do we have here?" Zara's eyes snapped open, and she looked up to find a man perched on top of the crates like some kind of dark angel. Golden eyes met hers, and the world tilted on its axis. The mate bond snapped into place with the force of a lightning strike. Every nerve ending in her body came alive, singing with recognition and desperate need. Her wolf threw herself against the mental barriers Zara had spent years constructing, howling with joy and demand. Mine. 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 But even as her soul recognized its other half, her training kicked in. This man, this gorgeous, dangerous stranger with eyes like liquid amber and shoulders broad enough to block out the moon, was standing exactly where Marcus had said the weapons cache would be, which meant he was Crimson Fang, which meant he was the enemy. The man's nostrils flared, and she watched his pupils dilate as her scent reached him. His hands gripped the edge of the crate, so hard the metal groaned. "Fuck," he breathed, and she heard the same desperate recognition in his voice that was clawing at her chest. For a heartbeat, they simply stared at each other, the air between them crackling with supernatural electricity and impossible connection. Zara felt like she was drowning in those golden eyes, in the promise of everything she'd convinced herself she didn't want. Then reality crashed back in. "Luna's blessing," she whispered, scrambling to her feet and reaching for her weapon. "You're him. You're Kai Crimson, the most wanted werewolf on the eastern seaboard, alpha of the Crimson Fang pack, responsible for more supernatural crime than any other single individual in the past decade. Her fated mate." His expression went from wonder to something much darker. "And your law enforcement." His voice had gone cold, though she could still smell the arousal and confusion rolling off him in waves. "I can smell it on you. The stench of betrayal and false justice." "I'm Detective Zara Blackthorne, Supernatural Crimes Unit," she said, though her hand shook as she drew her gun. Her wolf was practically howling in protest at the thought of threatening their mate. "And you're under arrest." Kai laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Is that so, Detective? Because from where I'm standing, you're trespassing on private property without a warrant." "Private property?" Zara's eyes darted around the warehouse, taking in the scattered crates, the suspicious lack of actual weapons. "This is supposed to be abandoned." "Supposed to be according to who?" Kai dropped down from the crates in one fluid motion, landing in a crouch that showcased every lean muscle in his body. Even in the dim light, she could see the intricate tattoos that covered his arms, pack markings that told the story of a life lived outside the law. The scent of him intensified as he moved closer, and Zara had to bite her lip to keep from whimpering. Her skin felt too tight, her body temperature spiking as every cell screamed for her to drop the weapon and claim what the moon had given her. Instead, she steadied her grip on the gun. "Stay back." "Or what?" He took another step closer, close enough now that she could see the silver flecks in his amber eyes. "You'll shoot your mate? Because that's what I am, isn't it, detective? That's what this is." He gestured to the space between them, where the air practically vibrated with supernatural tension. "The bond our ancestors died to protect." "I don't believe in the mate bond," Zara lied, even as her body betrayed her with a full-body shiver at his proximity. "It's just biological programming designed to ensure pack survival." Something flickered in his eyes, hurt, maybe, or disappointment. "Is that what they teach you in the academy? That love is just programming?" "This isn't love." The words came out stronger than she felt. "This is pheromones and instinct. Nothing more." "Then why is your hand shaking?" He tilted his head, studying her with predatory intensity. "Why is your pulse racing? Why does your wolf want to submit to mine so badly that you're practically vibrating with the effort to resist?" Heat flooded her cheeks because he was right. Her wolf was begging her to bare her throat, to show submission to this alpha who could clearly overpower her without breaking a sweat. The need to touch him, to be touched by him, was becoming unbearable. "Because you're an alpha," she said through gritted teeth. "Basic pack hierarchy. It has nothing to do with." The warehouse door exploded inward. "And what did he?" "Nobody move." Marcus burst through the entrance with a full tactical team behind him, their weapons trained on Kai. Red laser dots danced across his chest, but he didn't even flinch. "Zara, step away from the suspect," Marcus shouted, his voice echoing off the warehouse walls. But Kai's attention was focused entirely on her, his eyes boring into hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. "Choose," he said quietly, his voice somehow carrying despite the chaos erupting around them. "Your duty or your heart." "I don't have a choice," she whispered back, hating the way her voice broke on the words. His smile was sharp and bitter. "There's always a choice, detective. You just have to be brave enough to make it." And then he was gone. One moment he was standing in front of her, close enough to touch, and the next he was nothing but shadows and the lingering scent of thunderstorms. The warehouse erupted in shouts and confusion as the tactical team tried to track a target that had simply vanished into thin air. "Where is he?" Marcus demanded, his face flushed with adrenaline and fury. "Zara, where did he go?" But Zara could only stand there, her gun still raised, staring at the empty space where her mate had been. Her whole body ached with his absence, the mate bond stretching tight and painful across the distance he'd put between them. "I don't know," she said finally, lowering her weapon with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. "He just disappeared." Marcus cursed and began barking orders at his team, but Zara barely heard him. All she could think about was the look in Kai's eyes, the hurt and disappointment when she denied what they both felt. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. With shaking fingers, she opened it. "This isn't over, detective. The moon has claimed us both, whether you want to admit it or not. Until we meet again. K." Zara stared at the message until the words blurred, her wolf whining pitifully in the back of her mind. She'd done her duty. She'd chosen her badge over the bond. So why did it feel like she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life? Chapter 2. 3 days later, Zara still couldn't get his scent out of her head. She sat at her desk in the precinct, staring at surveillance footage from the warehouse raid for what had to be the 100th time. Frame by frame, she watched Kai vanish into shadows that shouldn't have been able to hide a man of his size. Supernatural abilities were one thing, but this level of stealth suggested powers she'd never encountered before. "You look like hell," Marcus said, dropping a cup of coffee on her desk and settling into the chair across from her. "When's the last time you slept?" "I'm fine." The lie came automatically. The truth was, she hadn't slept more than a few hours at a time since the warehouse. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw amber eyes and felt phantom heat spreading through her veins. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his gray eyes studying her with the intensity that had made him one of the department's best detectives. "This is about him, isn't it?" Kai crimson. Zara's fingers tightened around her coffee mug. This is about doing our job. He's the biggest supernatural criminal in the city, and he slipped through our fingers. He's also your mate." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Zara looked up sharply to find Marcus watching her with a mixture of concern and resignation. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Zara, I've been your partner for 3 years. I know what mate recognition looks like." Marcus leaned forward, lowering his voice. "The way you two looked at each other in that warehouse. The scent markers were obvious to anyone with supernatural senses." Heat flooded her cheeks. She'd forgotten that Marcus was half fae. His supernatural abilities weren't as strong as a full-blood shifter's, but they were strong enough to pick up on mate bonds. "It doesn't matter," she said firmly. "He's a criminal. End of story." "Is it, though?" Marcus pulled out a thick file and dropped it on her desk. "Because I've been doing some digging into Kai Crimson, and the story isn't as black and white as we thought." Despite herself, Zara found her eyes drawn to the file. "What do you mean?" "I mean, most of the crimes attributed to the Crimson Fong pack happened when Kai was either provably elsewhere or when he was still a teenager." Marcus opened the file, revealing photos, documents, and witness statements. The arms dealing, the territory wars, the protection rackets, they all started under his father's leadership. Kai only became Alpha 2 years ago, and since then Crimson Fong activity has actually decreased significantly. Zara stared at the documents, her mind racing. "That doesn't make him innocent." "No, but it makes him interesting." Marcus pulled out a photograph of a younger Kai standing next to an older man with the same amber eyes, but a cruel smile. Victor Crimson was a piece of work. Brutal, territorial, completely without conscience. But from what I can tell, his son is different. Different how? 3 months ago, the Crimson Fangs stopped a human trafficking ring that was moving through their territory. They handed the perpetrators over to us, anonymously, but the DNA evidence was overwhelming. Marcus pulled out another document. 6 weeks ago, they provided information that led to the bust of a supernatural drug operation. Again, anonymous tip, but it saved dozens of lives. Zara's wolf stirred restlessly as she processed this information. Could it be possible that Kai wasn't the monster she'd believed him to be? "Even if that's true," she said slowly, "he's still wanted for his father's crimes. He's still the alpha of a criminal pack. Or maybe he's trying to clean up his father's mess and just doesn't trust the system enough to come forward." Marcus closed the file. Maybe he needs someone he can trust. Someone like his fated mate. "Don't." Zara stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I can't be objective about this case, Marcus. I should recuse myself. Running away won't make the bond go away, Zara. If anything, denying it will make it stronger." She was already walking toward the captain's office when her phone buzzed. Another unknown number, another message that made her heart race. "Meet me at the old pier, warehouse 47. Come alone. There's something you need to know about the Silverback Pack." "K." Her steps faltered. The Silverback Pack had been muscling in on Crimson Fong territory for months, growing bolder and more violent with each confrontation. If they were planning something big. "Zara." Marcus had followed her, concern written across his face. "What is it?" She stared at the message, torn between duty and a pull she couldn't name. "He wants to meet." "Then go." "Marcus." "Go," he said firmly. "But wear a wire. And backup will be close by, whether you want it or not." 20 minutes later, Zara stood outside Warehouse 47, the Hudson River lapping against the old pier beneath her feet. The wire Marcus had insisted on felt heavy beneath her jacket, a constant reminder that this was still a police operation, no matter what her traitorous heart wanted to believe. The warehouse door stood slightly ajar, spilling golden light onto the pier. She could smell him before she saw him, that intoxicating scent of thunderstorms and wild forests that made her wolf whine with longing. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Kai said as she stepped inside. He was leaning against a wooden crate, arms crossed, looking like every dark fantasy she'd ever refused to acknowledge. Tonight he wore dark jeans and a black leather jacket that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. His amber eyes tracked her movement as she entered, and she felt that familiar heat building in her core. "I'm here for information about the Silverbacks," she said, proud of how steady her voice sounded. "Nothing else." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Of course. Business only." But the way he said it, the way his eyes darkened as they traveled over her body, suggested he was thinking about anything but business. "Talk," she said, maintaining a careful distance between them. The silverbacks aren't just expanding territory, Kai said, his expression growing serious. They're planning something big. Something that's going to get a lot of innocent people killed. What kind of something? They've been buying weapons. Military-grade stuff. Enough firepower to level several city blocks. He moved closer, and Zara had to force herself not to step back. They're planning to hit the Autumn Equinox Festival next week. Zara's blood ran cold. The Autumn Equinox Festival was the largest supernatural gathering in the city. Hundreds of pack members, families, children, all celebrating together in Central Park. How do you know this? Because they approached me first, Kai said quietly. Wanted the Crimson Fangs to join their little war. When I refused, they made it clear they'd go ahead without us. You refused to join a war? The words slipped out before she could stop them. Something flickered in his eyes. Does that surprise you, Detective? That I might not want to see innocent people die? Yes, it did surprise her. Everything about this man surprised her. From the careful way he'd handled their first meeting to the intelligence in his eyes to the way he seemed to genuinely care about preventing bloodshed. Why are you telling me this? She asked instead. Because despite what you think of me, I'm not a monster. He took another step closer, close enough now that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. And because my mate is a cop who's taken an oath to protect people. I'm not your mate, she said automatically, but the words felt like ash in her mouth. Aren't you? His voice dropped to a whisper as he reached out, his fingers barely grazing her cheek. Tell me you don't feel it, Zara. Tell me your wolf isn't clawing at your insides right now, begging you to accept what we both know is true. The touch sent electricity shooting through her nervous system. Her knees went weak, and only iron will kept her from melting into him completely. What I feel doesn't matter, she managed to say. It's the only thing that matters. His thumb traced along her jawline, and she couldn't suppress the shiver that ran through her. The moon doesn't make mistakes, Detective. We were made for each other. We're on opposite sides of the law. Are we? His amber eyes searched hers. Because from where I'm standing, we both want to protect innocent people. We both want justice. The only difference is our methods. For a moment, she let herself imagine it. What it would be like to accept the bond, to give in to the pull between them. To have someone who understood the demands of her wolf, who could match her strength and challenge her mind. Then reality crashed back in. I need more than your word about the silverbacks, she said, stepping back and immediately missing his warmth. I need proof. Disappointment flashed across his features, but he nodded. Tomorrow night. They're meeting at the old subway depot on the Lower East Side. You'll find all the proof you need there. He moved toward the warehouse exit, but paused in the doorway. For what it's worth, Zara, I understand why you're fighting this. But running from fate never ends well. Trust me, I've tried. And then he was gone, leaving her alone with the scent of thunderstorms and the aching certainty that she was in far deeper than she'd ever intended. Chapter 3. The subway depot was a graveyard of rusted metal and broken dreams. Zara crouched in the shadows between two abandoned train cars, her enhanced hearing picking up the low murmur of voices from the main platform. She'd come alone despite Marcus's protests. The wire he'd insisted on her only concession to department protocol. You sure about this intel? The voice belonged to Derek Silverback, the pack's brutal second in command. Even from 50 yards away, Zara could smell the violence that clung to him like cheap cologne. The source is solid, came the reply from Alpha Matthias Silverback himself. The festival will have maximum casualties with minimum security. We hit hard, we hit fast, and we send a message that no pack operates in this city without our permission. Zara's blood turned to ice as she listened to them plan mass murder with the casual efficiency of discussing the weather. Kai had been telling the truth. What about the Crimson Fangs? Derek asked. They refused our offer. That makes them enemies. Kai Crimson is too soft, Matthias spat. His father understood power. The son understands nothing but idealism and weakness. After the festival, we'll deal with them permanently. Zara shifted her position to get a better view and froze. There were at least 20 silverback wolves here, all armed with weapons that definitely weren't legal for civilian use. Military-grade assault rifles, explosives, enough firepower to turn Central Park into a war zone. Her finger moved to the wire's activation switch, but before she could signal for backup, a hand clamped over her mouth. Don't move, a familiar voice breathed against her ear, and despite the command, relief flooded through her. Kai's scent wrapped around her like a security blanket, and her wolf practically purred with satisfaction. He pulled her deeper into the shadows between the train cars, his body pressed against her back in a way that made her pulse race for entirely unprofessional reasons. "What are you doing here?" she whispered once he'd removed his hand from her mouth. "Same thing you are. Gathering evidence." His amber eyes gleamed in the darkness. "Though I notice you came alone despite promising your partner you'd have backup. How do you never mind?" She didn't want to know how he'd gotten access to her conversations with Marcus. "We need to get this information back to the precinct. They're planning to." "I know what they're planning." His voice was grim. "I've been tracking their weapons purchases for weeks." "Then why didn't you stop them?" "With what authority?" His laugh was bitter. "I'm a wanted criminal, remember? Even if I took them all out tonight, your people would just assume I was eliminating competition." The truth of that statement hit her like a physical blow. No matter what Kai did, his reputation would color how people interpreted his actions. "So what's the plan?" she asked. "You're going to call in backup, and I'm going to make sure none of those weapons make it to the festival." He started to move away, but she caught his arm. "That's suicide. There are too many of them." Something hot and dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Are you worried about me, detective?" "I'm worried about justice," she lied, ignoring the way her hand tingled where it touched him. "If you die, they'll just paint you as a martyr and use it to justify whatever comes next. And if I live?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications she wasn't ready to face. If he lived, if he helped stop the Silverbacks, what did that mean for her carefully constructed worldview? What did it mean for them? "We do this together," she heard herself say. "Official police operation, with you as a confidential informant." Kai's eyebrows shot up. "You're willing to trust me?" "I'm willing to trust that we both want to stop innocent people from dying." The distinction felt important, even if her racing heart suggested it wasn't entirely accurate. "Together, then." His smile was devastating in the moonlight filtering through the broken depot ceiling. "But we do this my way." Before she could ask what that meant, chaos erupted around them. "Movement in Sector 7. Derek's voice boomed across the depot. "We've got company." Flashlights cut through the darkness, searching for intruders. Zara's heart hammered against her ribs as she and Kai pressed deeper into the shadows. "They know we're here," she whispered. "No," Kai said quietly, his nostrils flaring as he scented the air. "Someone else is here." That's when she heard it, the distinctive whistle of something moving very fast through the air. A smoke grenade landed 20 feet away, immediately filling the depot with thick, choking fog. "Gas masks," Matthias roared. "It's a raid." But Zara knew it wasn't department-issue smoke. This was something else entirely, something that made her wolf whine with unease. "Kai," she started to say, but he was already moving. "Stay down," he commanded, his voice carrying an alpha authority that made her wolf want to submit. "No matter what happens, stay down." And then he was gone, vanishing into the smoke like a ghost. The next few minutes were pure chaos. Gunshots echoed off the metal walls, accompanied by inhuman snarls and the sound of claws on concrete. Through the smoke, Zara caught glimpses of movement, shapes too fast and fluid to be entirely human. When the smoke finally cleared, the scene was like something out of a nightmare. The silverback wolves lay unconscious throughout the depot, their weapons scattered and useless. But they weren't dead. Zara could hear their steady breathing, see the rise and fall of their chests. "Tranquilizer," Kai said, appearing at her side as if he'd materialized from the shadows themselves. His clothes were torn, and there were scratches along his arms, but he was alive. "They'll wake up in a few hours with nothing worse than headaches." "Who did this?" Zara looked around at the unconscious wolves, trying to process what she'd witnessed. "My pack." Kai's voice carried a note of pride. "The Crimson Fangs aren't the criminals you think we are, Zara. We're the ones who clean up messes like this when the official authorities can't act fast enough. Vigilantes. Protectors." He moved closer, and despite everything, she found herself drawn to his warmth. "There's a difference." "Is there?" She gestured to the unconscious silverbacks. "You took the law into your own hands. You decided who was guilty and what their punishment should be. And I chose non-lethal force when I could have chosen otherwise." His amber eyes burned into hers. "These wolves were planning to massacre hundreds of innocent people, Zara. Children. Families. Your people weren't going to act until it was too late." The truth of that stung because she knew he was right. Even with her testimony about what she'd overheard, it would have taken days to get warrants, to build a case, to coordinate a response. By then, the festival would have been over and the bodies counted. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you call in your backup and take credit for stopping a terrorist plot." Kai began moving toward the exit. "The weapons are secured, the perpetrators are unconscious and ready for arrest, and you've got enough evidence to put them away for life. What about you?" He paused in the doorway, silhouetted against the moonlight streaming in from outside. "What about me? This changes things. What you did tonight changes nothing," he said firmly. "I'm still a wanted criminal. You're still a cop. The only thing that's changed is now you know the truth about what kind of man your mate really is." With that, he disappeared into the night, leaving Zara alone with 20 unconscious criminals and the growing certainty that everything she'd believed about right and wrong was far more complicated than she'd ever imagined. Her phone rang. "Marcus." "Zara? We heard gunshots. Are you?" "Send backup," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her chest. "I've got the silverback pack in custody and enough evidence to put them away forever." "Jesus. How did you?" "I had help," she said quietly, staring at the spot where Kai had vanished. "I'll explain everything when you get here." But even as she said it, she knew she wouldn't be able to explain everything. How could she put into words the way her entire worldview had shifted in the space of an hour? How could she describe the pull she felt toward a man who operated outside the law, but somehow embodied justice more purely than anyone she'd ever known? As sirens wailed in the distance, Zara closed her eyes and tried to ignore her wolf's mournful howl. The mate bond was getting stronger, not weaker, and she was running out of reasons to deny it. Chapter 4. You want to explain to me how 20 armed suspects ended up unconscious without a single casualty on our side. Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through the precinct bullpen like a blade. Zara sat in his office, still wearing clothes that smelled like smoke and gunpowder, trying to find words for what had happened at the depot. "I told you, Captain. I had help from a confidential informant. A CI who happens to be a master tactician, apparently." Rodriguez leaned back in his chair, his dark eyes studying her with the intensity of a man who'd spent 30 years learning to read people. "You want to tell me who this mystery helper was?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably in the chair beside her. They'd agreed on their story during the drive back to the precinct, but Zara could see the doubt in her partner's eyes. He knew she was holding something back. "The informant requested anonymity," she said carefully. "Standard protocol for supernatural cases involving pack politics." "Pack politics?" Rodriguez's tone suggested he wasn't buying it. "Zara, in my experience, when something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. A lone detective stumbles onto a terrorist plot, receives help from a mysterious CI, and manages to single-handedly neutralize an entire pack of armed criminals? That's the kind of story that makes internal affairs very, very interested." The threat was clear. Zara felt her wolf stir restlessly, responding to the challenge in her alpha's voice. But Rodriguez was right to be suspicious. The official story was full of holes. "The important thing is that the threat to the festival has been eliminated," she said. "The silverbacks are in custody, their weapons are secured, and hundreds of innocent people are safe." "That is important," Rodriguez agreed. "It's also convenient, because according to the DA's office, we now have enough evidence to take down the entire silverback organization. Anonymous tips about arms dealers, mysterious recordings of their planning sessions, even a detailed map of their territory marked with every illegal operation they've been running." Zara's blood chilled. "Anonymous tips? Delivered to my office this morning." Rodriguez pulled out a thick manila envelope. "Professional-grade intelligence, the kind that would take months of undercover work to gather. Your mysterious CI has been very busy." Through the envelope's open flap, Zara could see photographs, documents, financial records. Everything the NYPD would need to dismantle the silverback pack permanently. And all of it had Kai's fingerprints on it, metaphorically speaking. "Captain," Marcus said slowly, "are you suggesting Detective Blackthorne isn't being completely honest about her sources?" "I'm suggesting that sometimes good cops make deals with devils because they think it serves the greater good." Rodriguez's gaze never left Zara's face. "The question is whether those deals end up serving justice or just creating bigger problems down the road." Before Zara could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message. Her heart skipped when she saw the unknown number. By now, she'd memorized the pattern of Kai's burner phones. Coffee. There's something you need to know. Kay. I need some air, she said, standing abruptly. Zara. Marcus started to protest. I'll be back in an hour, she said, already moving toward the door. I just need to clear my head. She was 3 blocks from the precinct when she realized she was being followed. The scent was subtle, masked by the urban chaos of car exhaust and food trucks, but her enhanced senses picked up the distinctive musk of an unknown wolf. Male, aggressive, definitely not pack. Zara ducked into an alley between 2 office buildings and waited. Within seconds, her pursuer rounded the corner. A tall, lean man with predatory eyes and scars across his throat that suggested he'd survived having his vocal cords ripped out. Detective Blackthorne, he said, his voice a harsh whisper. You've been a very busy girl. Do I know you? She kept her hand near her weapon, though she doubted bullets would be much use against a supernatural predator in close quarters. The name's Vincent Cross. I represent certain interests that were negatively impacted by your little raid last night. Understanding dawned cold and terrible. Your silverback. Was. His smile revealed teeth filed to points. Now I'm unemployed, along with about 50 other wolves who depended on Matthias for territory and protection. That's not my problem, isn't it? Vincent took a step closer, and Zara caught the scent of violence and madness clinging to him like a second skin. See, we know you didn't take down the silverbacks alone. We know who really hit that depot. Her wolf went very still. I don't know what you're talking about. Kai Crimson. The name dripped from Vincent's tongue like poison. Your mate. The word hit her like a physical blow. If other packs knew about the bond. We can smell it on you, Vincent continued, circling her like a predator testing prey. His scent, all mixed up with arousal and confusion. You've been denying the bond, haven't you? That's why it's so strong, so obvious. Get to the point. The point is, detective, that you're going to help us get revenge on the man who destroyed our pack. Or we're going to make sure everyone knows that the NYPD's star supernatural crimes investigator is mated to the city's most wanted criminal. The threat was clear and devastating. If word got out about the mate bond, her career would be over. Worse, it would cast doubt on every case she'd ever worked, every conviction she'd helped secure. What do you want? She asked. Kai Crimson delivered to us. Alone, defenseless, ready to pay for what he's done. Vincent's scarred throat worked as he spoke. You set up the meeting, and we'll make sure your little secret stays buried. And if I refuse, then tomorrow morning, every major news outlet in the city receives a very interesting story about corruption in the Supernatural Crimes Unit, complete with photos, scent evidence, and witness testimony. Vincent pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph that made her stomach drop. It was from the warehouse. Her and Kai, standing close enough to touch, the mate bond practically visible in the way they looked at each other. 48 hours, detective. Send him a message, set up a meeting, and deliver him to us. Or watch your career burn while we hunt him down anyway. With that, Vincent melted back into the urban chaos, leaving Zara alone with the impossible choice he'd presented. Her phone rang. Marcus. Zara, where are you? Rodriguez wants to see us back in his office. Something about federal interest in the Silverback case. I'm on my way, she said, though her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. As she walked back toward the precinct, Zara's mind raced through her options. She could refuse Vincent's demands and let her career burn. But that would mean losing her ability to protect people, losing everything she'd worked for. She could comply and set Kai up for what would certainly be his death. But that would mean betraying her mate, destroying the one pure thing in her increasingly complicated world. Or she could find a third option, something that would protect both Kai and her career. But first, she needed to warn him. Her fingers moved over her phone's keyboard as she walked. We need to meet. Now. It's urgent. Z. The response came immediately. Usual place. 10 minutes. Zara changed direction, heading for the old pier where this had all started. She had no idea what she was going to tell Kai, how she was going to explain that their mate bond had just become a weapon that could destroy them both. All she knew was that for the first time since she'd pinned on her badge, duty and desire weren't just in conflict. They were at war, and she was running out of time to choose a side. Chapter 5. The old pier felt different this time. Zara stood at the edge of the wooden planks, watching moonlight dance across the Hudson River's dark surface. The autumn air carried the scent of approaching winter, But underneath it, she could detect something else. The electric tension of a storm about to break. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Kai said behind her. She turned to find him emerging from the shadows between the abandoned warehouses. Tonight he wore dark tactical gear that emphasized every lean muscle, and his amber eyes gleamed with predatory awareness. Even in the dim light, she could see the concern etched across his features. "Vincent Cross," she said without preamble. "Does that name mean anything to you?" Kai's entire body went rigid. "Where did you hear that name?" "He cornered me outside the precinct this afternoon. Made me an offer I'm supposed to not be able to refuse." Zara moved closer, drawn by the protective tension radiating from him. "He wants me to deliver you to him in exchange for keeping our mate bond secret." "Fuck." Kai ran a hand through his dark hair, his control slipping enough that she caught a glimpse of gold in his eyes. His wolf rising to the surface. "Vincent Cross is a dead man. He's very much alive. And he has photos of us from the warehouse." She pulled out her phone, showing him Vincent's threatening text. "He's given me 48 hours. Kai studied the message, his jaw tightening with each word. Vincent was Matthias Silverback's enforcer. The kind of wolf who enjoyed the killing more than the money. If he's gone rogue, then he's not bound by pack law anymore. Zara finished the thought, her own wolf whining with unease. She'd heard stories about rogue wolves. They were the monsters that gave all supernatural creatures a bad name. "He won't stop with just me," Kai said quietly. "Once he has his revenge, he'll come for you. For anyone connected to the Silverback's downfall." The certainty in his voice sent ice through her veins. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we end this before it begins." Kai moved closer, close enough that his warmth cut through the October chill. "Vincent wants a meeting? Let's give him one. That's suicide. Not if we're smart about it." His eyes met hers, and she saw the deadly intelligence that had kept him alive in a world where weakness meant death. "Vincent expects you to betray me. He expects me to come alone and unprepared. What he doesn't expect is for us to work together." The word "together" sent heat spiraling through her chest. Her wolf preened at the idea of fighting alongside their mate, of hunting as a bonded pair. "This isn't just about Vincent," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "The captain suspects I'm not telling him everything. Federal agents are sniffing around the Silverback case. My career is hanging by a thread. And," Kai stepped closer, so close now that she could feel his breath against her skin. "Is your career worth more than innocent lives? That's not fair, isn't it?" His amber eyes burned into hers. "Vincent Cross has killed 43 people that we know of. He specializes in torture, in making death last as long as possible. If he's building a new pack from Silverback survivors, how many more will die while you try to protect your reputation?" The words hit like physical blows because she knew he was right. She'd become a cop to protect people, to serve justice. When had protecting her own interests become more important than that mission? "What's your plan?" she asked. Something dangerous and satisfied flickered in his expression. "Vincent wants a meeting? We give him one. But we choose the location, we control the variables, and we make sure he never threatens anyone again." "You're talking about murder. I'm talking about justice." His voice dropped to a whisper that made her shiver. "Sometimes they're the same thing." Before she could respond, her phone rang. "Marcus." "Take it," Kai said. "But put it on speaker." Against her better judgment, she did. "Zara, thank God. We've got a problem." Marcus's voice was tight with stress. "Vincent Cross just walked into the precinct. He's demanding to speak with you about the Silverback case." Zara's blood turned to ice. "He's there. Now. Sitting in interview room 3 like he owns the place. Says he has information about corruption in the Supernatural Crimes Unit." Marcus paused. "Captain Rodriguez wants you here immediately." Kai's hand moved to her arm, steadying her as the implications sank in. Vincent wasn't waiting for her decision. He was forcing it. "I'll be right there," she said, ending the call. "Change of plans," Kai said grimly. "Vincent's not just threatening you anymore. He's making his move. I have to go back. I have to face this. Not alone." The alpha authority in his voice made her wolf want to submit, but it also filled her with a strength she hadn't known she possessed. "I'm coming with you. Kai, no. If you show up at the precinct, then Vincent gets exactly what he wants, a public confrontation that destroys us both." His hands cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Trust me, Zara. Trust your mate." The word sent heat spiraling through her entire body. This time, she didn't deny it. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time Vincent Cross learned what happens when someone threatens what belongs to me. His thumb traced along her jawline, and she shivered at the possessive heat in his voice. Can you get me into the building? The parking garage, she said before she could think better of it. There's a service entrance on sublevel 2. But Kai, if you're caught. I won't be caught. His smile was all predator. I'm very good at being invisible when I need to be. 20 minutes later, Zara sat across from Vincent Cross in interview room 3, every instinct screaming that she was walking into a trap. Vincent looked different under the harsh fluorescent lights, smaller somehow, but no less dangerous. His filed teeth gleamed as he smiled, and the scars on his throat stood out white against his pale skin. Detective Blackthorne, so good of you to join me. You said you had information about corruption in the supernatural crimes unit. She kept her voice level, professional, though her wolf was clawing to get out. I'm listening. Oh, I have information, Vincent said, leaning back in his chair with predatory satisfaction. The question is, are you ready to hear it? Through the one-way mirror, she could see Captain Rodriguez and 2 federal agents watching the interview. Her career, her reputation, everything she'd worked for hung in the balance. Talk, she said. Vincent's smile widened. Detective Zara Blackthorne, badge number 4387, has been compromised by her supernatural biology. Specifically, she has formed an inappropriate relationship with known criminal Kai Crimson that has clouded her judgment and corrupted her investigations. The words hit the room like a bomb. Zara felt the weight of eyes on her from behind the mirror, knew that her life as she'd known it was over. That's a serious accusation, she said quietly. Do you have proof? I have photographs, witness testimony, chemical analysis of scent markers. Vincent pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. I have everything I need to prove that the NYPD's star supernatural investigator is mated to the man she's supposed to be hunting. Zara looked down at the screen and felt her heart stop. There were dozens of photos. Her and Kai at the warehouse, at the pier, outside the depot. In every single one, their connection was obvious, unmistakable. What do you want? She asked. Justice, Vincent said simply. Kai Crimson destroyed my pack, cost me everything I'd built. I want him to pay for that. And in exchange? In exchange, these photos stay private. Your career continues. Your reputation remains intact. Vincent leaned forward, his scarred voice dropping to a whisper. All you have to do is deliver him to me. The interview room door opened, and Captain Rodriguez stepped inside, his face grim. Detective Blackthorne, you're needed in my office. Now. Vincent's smile was triumphant. 48 hours, Detective. Don't keep me waiting. As they left the interview room, Zara caught a familiar scent in the hallway. Thunderstorms and wild forests. Kai was here, somewhere in the building, waiting for her signal. Captain, she said as they walked toward his office, I need to tell you something about the Silverback investigation. You need to tell me a lot of things, Rodriguez replied grimly. Starting with why a known criminal just presented me with evidence that my best detective is compromised. They reached his office, where the 2 federal agents were waiting. Zara recognized the type. Sharp suits, sharper eyes, the kind of people who measured justice in statistics and conviction rates. Detective Blackthorne, the taller agent said, I'm Agent Sarah Chun, FBI Supernatural Crimes Division. This is Agent Michael Torres. We need to discuss your relationship with Kai Crimson. What relationship? Zara asked, though her heart was pounding so hard she was sure they could hear it. The one documented in approximately 47 photographs taken over the past week, Agent Torres said dryly. The one that explains how you single-handedly took down an entire terrorist cell without backup or casualties. I had help from a confidential informant. Kai Crimson. I never said that. You didn't have to. Agent Chen opened a laptop and turned it toward her. We've been tracking Crimson's activities for months. Interestingly, every major crime prevention in the city correlates with locations you've visited or cases you've worked. The screen showed a map of New York City with dozens of pins. Red for crimes prevented, blue for her official case locations. The overlap was damning. Here's what we think happened, Agent Torres said. You encountered Kai Crimson during the warehouse raid and experienced mate recognition. Instead of arresting him, you chose to work with him, using his information to build cases while protecting his identity. Zara started to deny it, then stopped. What was the point? The evidence was overwhelming, and she was tired of lying. "That's exactly what happened," she said quietly. The room went very still. "Jesus, Zara," Captain Rodriguez said. "Do you have any idea what you've done? I've prevented 3 terrorist attacks, dismantled the largest supernatural crime organization in the city, and saved hundreds of innocent lives." She lifted her chin, meeting each of their gazes in turn. "If that's corruption, then I'm proud to be corrupt." Agent Chen closed the laptop. "Detective Blackthorne, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice, aiding and abetting a known criminal, and corruption of a federal investigation." "Wait," Agent Torres said, his phone buzzing with an incoming message. He read it, frowned, then read it again. "Ma'am, we need to go. Now." "What's wrong?" Chin demanded. "Vincent Cross just escaped custody. And according to this, he's not working alone." The lights in the building flickered and went out. In the darkness, Zara heard the sound of breaking glass, distant screams, and something that made her blood freeze. The howl of wolves on the hunt. "It's a trap," she breathed. "Vincent didn't come here to make a deal. He came here to draw us all into one place." Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in hellish red. Through the office windows, Zara could see shapes moving in the parking garage. Too many shapes, all of them predatory. "How many officers are in the building?" Agent Chen demanded. 60, maybe 70, Rodriguez replied, already reaching for his weapon. "He brought a pack," Zara said, understanding flooding through her. "Vincent's assembled every rogue wolf from the Silverback collapse. This isn't about revenge anymore, it's about sending a message." And somewhere in this building, the man she was finally ready to call her mate was walking into a war zone. Chapter 6. The precinct had become a war zone. Zara moved through the corridors with her weapon drawn, the emergency lighting casting everything in bloody shadows. The sound of combat echoed from every direction. Gunshots, snarls, the distinctive crack of claws against bulletproof glass. "Stay together," Agent Chen commanded, her federal training evident in the way she cleared each corner. "We need to reach the armory." "The armory's on the 2nd floor," Captain Rodriguez said grimly. "We'll have to go through the main bullpen." Through the stairwell window, Zara could see the chaos below. At least 15 wolves in hybrid form were tearing through the bullpen, their partially shifted bodies moving with supernatural speed and strength. Human officers were taking cover behind desks, but their standard weapons were barely slowing the attackers down. "They're not trying to kill everyone," she realized. "They're hurting people, driving everyone toward the center of the building." "Why?" Agent Torres demanded. Before she could answer, the fire alarm began blaring. Through the cacophony, she heard something that made her blood freeze. The distinctive hiss of gas being released through the ventilation system. "Chemical attack," Agent Chen said, pulling out a small detector. "Whatever they're pumping through the vents, it's not lethal. At least not immediately." "It's a sedative," Zara said, recognizing the sweet, cloying scent. "Something designed to affect supernatural metabolisms. They want everyone alive but unconscious." "For what?" The answer came in the form of Vincent Cross's voice over the building's PA system. "Attention, brave officers of the NYPD. You find yourselves in an unfortunate situation. In approximately 10 minutes, the gas currently flowing through your building will render every human unconscious. The supernatural officers will last longer, but not much." Captain Rodriguez cursed and tried his radio. "Dead. They're jamming all frequencies." Vincent's voice continued, echoing through the empty corridors. "I want one person and one person only, Detective Zara Blackthorne. Bring her to the main lobby, and everyone else walks out alive. Refuse, and this building becomes a tomb." "He's not just after me," Zara said, understanding dawning cold and terrible. "He's after Kai. He knows Kai won't let an entire building full of cops die to protect his secret." As if summoned by her words, a familiar scent reached her. Thunderstorms and wild forests, getting stronger by the second. "He's coming," she whispered. "Who's coming?" Agent Chen demanded. "My mate." The words slipped out before she could stop them, carrying the weight of acceptance she'd been fighting for days. Her wolf practically sang with relief at finally acknowledging the truth. Agent Torres's eyes widened. "Kai Crimson is here?" "In the building. He came with me," Zara admitted. "I told him about Vincent's threats. We were going to face this together." "Together?" Captain Rodriguez stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "Zara, he's a criminal. Whatever you think you feel for him. I love him. The words came out fierce and certain, cutting through all her doubts and denials. I love him, and he's walking into a trap to save people who want to arrest him. So we can either stand here arguing about my choices, or we can figure out how to help him. The ventilation system hissed again, and she could feel the sedative gas beginning to affect her enhanced metabolism. Her vision was starting to blur at the edges, her wolf becoming sluggish and confused. Gas masks, Agent Chen said, but they all knew it was too late. The building's air filtration system had been compromised from the beginning. There, Agent Torres pointed to a maintenance shaft in the ceiling. We can bypass the main corridors, get to the lobby through the building's infrastructure. They were halfway to the shaft when the lights went out completely. In the absolute darkness, Zara's supernatural senses became her lifeline. She could hear heartbeats, breathing, the soft whisper of clothing against skin. But she could also hear something else. The nearly silent footsteps of someone moving with predatory grace through the building. "Kai," she breathed. A warm hand touched her shoulder, and she nearly cried out with relief. His scent wrapped around her like a security blanket, cutting through the chemical haze that was muddling her thoughts. "I'm here," he whispered against her ear. "Are you hurt?" "No, but Vincent." "I know." His voice carried a deadly calm that made her shiver. 15 rogues, gas attack, building locked down. Vincent's in the lobby with at least 5 hostages. "How do you?" "My pack is outside. We've been monitoring radio chatter and thermal imaging." His hand found hers in the darkness, fingers intertwining. "This ends tonight, Zara. One way or another." "Kai Crimson, I presume?" Agent Chen's voice cut through their whispered conversation. Even in the dark, her federal training was evident in the way she'd positioned herself for maximum tactical advantage. "Agent Chen," Kai replied calmly. "I've heard about your work with the FBI's Supernatural Crimes Division. Impressive conviction rate. You're under arrest. Actually, I'm here to help. Unless you'd prefer to let Vincent Cross turn this building into a supernatural Alamo." The debate was cut short by another announcement from Vincent. "5 minutes, Detective Blackthorne. I'm starting to get impatient." "What's the plan?" Captain Rodriguez asked grimly. "Vincent expects Zara to come down alone and scared," Kai said. "What he'll get is all of us, coordinated and angry. The gas is a problem, but it's not designed to be lethal. Vincent wants witnesses to his revenge." "Witnesses to what?" Agent Torres demanded. "To what happens when someone threatens his mate," Zara said quietly, understanding flooding through her. "This was never about revenge against you for destroying the Silverbacks. This is about proving that the mate bond makes us weak." "Does it?" Kai's voice was soft, but she could hear the vulnerability underneath. "No," she said firmly. "It makes us stronger." And as if to prove her point, her wolf began to fight off the effects of the sedative gas. The mate bond was acting like a supernatural stimulant, keeping her alert and focused even as the chemicals tried to drag her under. "The shaft," Agent Chen said. "We use the maintenance tunnels to reach the lobby from above. Coordinated strike, fast and overwhelming." "Vincent will have lookouts," Kai warned. "Then we give him something else to look at." Zara pulled out her phone, surprised to find it still had signal. "Marcus is somewhere in this building. If I can reach him." Her partner's voice came through on the third ring, groggy but alert. "Zara, thank God. We're trapped in the evidence room with about 20 other people. This gas is—" "Marcus, listen carefully. I need you to create a distraction in exactly 3 minutes. Something big, something that will draw attention away from the main lobby." "What kind of distraction?" She looked at Kai, seeing her own desperate determination reflected in his amber eyes. "The kind that gives 2 mates a chance to save everyone they care about." "Zara," Marcus said quietly, "whatever you're planning, tell everyone the gas won't kill them, but they need to stay conscious as long as possible. And Marcus, if we don't make it out of this—" "You will," he said firmly, "because you're the strongest person I know, and you've finally stopped lying to yourself about what you want." The line went dead just as Vincent's voice echoed through the building again. "Time's up, Detective. Come to me now, or I start killing hostages." Through the maintenance shaft, Zara could see into the lobby below. Vincent stood in the center of the space, surrounded by 5 unconscious officers and at least 6 rogue wolves. His scarred throat worked as he spoke into a handheld radio. "He's coordinating with someone outside," Kai whispered. "This is bigger than just revenge." "What do you mean?" "Look at the positioning, the timing. Vincent's not just trying to kill us. He's trying to destroy the relationship between supernatural creatures and law enforcement permanently. Understanding hit her like a physical blow. If the media got hold of footage showing a mate bond between a cop and a criminal leading to a massacre at police headquarters, it would set supernatural rights back decades, she breathed. Or eliminate them entirely. Kai's expression was grim. Vincent's not just rogue. He's working for someone who wants to see all supernatural creatures treated as monsters. The implications were staggering. This wasn't about pack politics or personal revenge. It was about a much larger war. Then we stop him, Zara said simply. Together. She looked into his amber eyes and saw her future reflected there. Dangerous, complicated, but absolutely right. Together. The explosion from the evidence room shook the entire building, sending clouds of concrete dust through the air. Marcus's distraction was spectacular, drawing every rogue wolf's attention toward the back of the building. Now, Kai whispered. They dropped through the maintenance shaft like avenging angels, landing in perfect synchronization in the lobby below. Vincent spun toward them, his filed teeth gleaming in the emergency lighting. Well, well, he said, his scarred voice carrying clearly through the space. The happy couple arrives at last. Let the hostages go, Vincent, Zara said, her weapon trained on his center mass. This is between us. Is it? Vincent's smile was genuinely insane. Because from where I'm standing, this is about so much more than personal grievances. He gestured, and Zara realized with growing horror that cameras had been set up throughout the lobby. Red lights indicated they were recording, broadcasting, probably streaming live to the internet. The world is about to see what happens when law enforcement gets too cozy with the monsters they're supposed to be hunting, Vincent continued. They're going to watch a mated pair choose each other over innocent lives. That's not what's happening here, Kai said quietly. Isn't it? Vincent pulled out a remote detonator. Because I've got enough explosives in this building to level 6 city blocks. And the only way to stop me is for one of you to kill the other. The choice hung in the air between them, impossible and absolute. Choose, Vincent commanded. Your mate or everyone else in this building. You have 30 seconds. Zara looked at Kai and saw her own desperate resolve reflected in his eyes. They'd found each other across an impossible divide, acknowledged a bond that defied logic and law. But they were both protectors first. I love you, she said quietly. I love you too, he replied. Which is why we're going to find a third option. Vincent's laughter echoed through the lobby as the timer on his detonator began counting down from 29 seconds. Chapter 7. 18 seconds. Zara's mind raced through possibilities as Vincent's timer counted down. The explosives were real. She could smell the chemical signature of military-grade plastique throughout the building. The hostages were unconscious but alive. And somewhere in this nightmare, there had to be a solution that didn't require choosing between her mate and innocent lives. 15 seconds. You know what your problem is, Vincent? Kai said conversationally, taking a step forward. You never understood what real strength looks like. Stay back, Vincent snarled, his finger hovering over the detonator. I'll blow this place early if I have to. 12 seconds. Real strength isn't proving you can destroy things, Kai continued, and Zara caught the subtle shift in his posture. Her wolf recognized the change. He was preparing to strike. Real strength is knowing when to protect what matters most. 9 seconds. Kai, Zara whispered, understanding flooding through her. He was going to try to take Vincent down before the timer reached 0. But the detonator was designed with a dead man's switch. If Vincent's heart stopped, the building would explode anyway. 6 seconds. Unless. The mate bond, she breathed. Kai's amber eyes met hers across the lobby, and she saw the exact moment he understood. They'd been fighting the connection for days, denying the supernatural link that wanted to join their souls. But what if they stopped fighting? What if they embraced it completely? 3 seconds. Zara closed her eyes and opened every mental barrier she'd built against the mate bond. The connection slammed into her with the force of a freight train. Kai's thoughts, his emotions, his desperate love for her flooding through her consciousness. Together, his voice echoed in her mind. Together, she agreed. The bond snapped into full activation just as the timer reached 0. Power beyond anything she'd ever imagined coursed through her veins. Not just her own supernatural strength, but Kai's as well, amplified and focused by their connection. She could feel his wolf merging with hers, their souls becoming something greater than the sum of their parts. Vincent's finger pressed the detonator. Nothing happened. What? Vincent stared at the device in confusion, pressing the button again and again. This is impossible. Not impossible, Zara said, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there moments before. Just unpredictable. Through their bond, she could feel Kai's explanation flowing into her mind. EMP, electromagnetic pulse. When two powerful supernatural beings fully bonded, the energy release could disrupt electronic devices within a significant radius. The Crimson Fangs have been very busy tonight, Kai said, his own voice resonating with new power. While you were setting up your little show, my pack was locating and disabling every explosive device you planted. That's impossible, Vincent repeated, but his voice lacked conviction now. You made a fundamental error, Vincent, Zara said, stepping forward. The rogue wolves who'd been flanking their leader backed away from her, instinctively recognizing the alpha authority that now radiated from her bonded form. You assumed the mate bond was a weakness. You were wrong. Vincent's scarred face contorted with rage. This isn't over. He shifted into hybrid form with inhuman speed, muscles bulging and claws extending. But his attack never reached them. Zara and Kai moved as one, their enhanced connection allowing them to coordinate with perfect precision. She went low while he went high, her tranquilizer dart finding its mark just as his claws raked across Vincent's throat. Not to kill, but to incapacitate. Vincent dropped to the lobby floor, his hybrid form reverting to human as the sedative took effect. Sweet dreams, Kai said quietly. Around them, the remaining rogue wolves were surrendering without a fight. Faced with two fully bonded mates radiating unified alpha authority, their pack instincts demanded submission. The hostages, Zara said, already moving toward the unconscious officers. They'll be fine. Agent Chen's voice came from the stairwell. She emerged with Captain Rodriguez and Agent Torres, all of them looking worse for wear but alive. Whatever you did disrupted the gas dispensing system too. The air's clearing. What we did, Zara said, not bothering to hide the wonder in her voice, was accept what we are. She could feel Kai's emotions through their bond. Love, satisfaction, and a deep sense of rightness that matched her own. The connection was permanent now, unbreakable, and absolutely perfect. So, Captain Rodriguez said after a long moment, I don't suppose there's any way to pretend this didn't happen? Agent Chun was studying them both with professional curiosity. The mate bond is legally recognized under the Supernatural Persons Protection Act, she said slowly. And given that Mr. Crimson's assistance was instrumental in preventing a terrorist attack. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Zara asked. I'm saying the FBI is prepared to offer Mr. Crimson immunity in exchange for his cooperation in dismantling what's left of the supernatural crime networks in the city. Agent Chen's smile was sharp, assuming, of course, that he's interested in a more official role in law enforcement. Kai's surprise flowed through their bond, followed quickly by a warmth that made Zara's heart race. Consulting position, Agent Torres added. Significant autonomy, access to resources, and a chance to actually clean up the supernatural underworld from the inside. What about my pack? Kai asked. Legal amnesty for any member willing to undergo background checks and psychological evaluation, Agent Chen replied. The Crimson Fangs have done more to prevent supernatural crime in the past 6 months than any official task force. It's time we made that partnership official. Zara felt tears prick her eyes as the impossible became possible. Through their bond, she could sense Kai's cautious hope, his desire to build something better from the ashes of his father's legacy. One condition, he said finally. Name it. My mate and I work as partners. Same cases, same authority, same risks. His amber eyes met hers, and the love flowing through their connection nearly brought her to her knees. We're stronger together. Deal, Agent Chen said without hesitation. As dawn broke over New York City, Zara stood on the precinct steps next to the man who was now officially her partner in every sense of the word. The media was calling it the most successful supernatural crime bust in NYPD history. Vincent Cross and his rogue pack were in federal custody, facing terrorism charges that would keep them locked away forever. So, Kai said, his arm around her waist as they watched the sunrise, how does it feel to be the NYPD's first officially mated supernatural crimes team? Like the beginning of something incredible, Zara replied, tilting her face up for his kiss. When their lips met, she could taste tomorrow on his tongue. Dangerous cases, shared victories, a love that had been tested by fire and emerged stronger than ever. "I love you," she whispered against his mouth. "I love you too," he replied. "My mate, my partner, my everything." Through their bond, she felt his wolf settle contentedly against hers, two souls finally at peace. But as they walked toward their future together, neither of them noticed the figure watching from across the street, a woman with silver hair and ancient eyes, holding a phone displaying a news headline that would change everything. Supernatural mate bond saves NYC. Federal government announces new task force initiative. The woman smiled and dialed a number. "Phase 1 is complete," she said when the call connected. "The Blackthorne Crimson Bond has been established and accepted. Begin Phase 2. The real game was just beginning." Chapter 8. 3 weeks into their new partnership, Zara was beginning to understand why some supernatural creatures went insane from mate bonds. Not because the connection was painful. Quite the opposite. The bond was intoxicating, addictive, a constant stream of warmth and rightness that made her feel complete in ways she'd never imagined possible. But it was also overwhelming, especially when she was trying to concentrate on federal case files, while Kai's desire pulsed through their mental link like a second heartbeat. "Focus, detective," Agent Chen said dryly from across the FBI task force conference table. "I know the mating instinct is intense, but we need your full attention on this." Heat flooded Zara's cheeks as she realized she'd been staring at Kai instead of the crime scene photos spread across the mahogany surface. Through their bond, she felt his amusement and his own struggle to concentrate on work when all he wanted was to claim her properly, thoroughly, in ways that would make her forget her own name. "Sorry," Zara muttered, forcing herself to look at the gruesome images. "What were you saying about the ritual sites?" 7 locations across the city," Agent Torres said, pointing to pins on a map. "All of them arranged in a specific pattern, all of them sites of supernatural significance going back centuries." Kai leaned forward, his expression growing serious as he studied the pattern. "That's not random. Someone's building a containment circle." "Containment for what?" Chen asked. "Or who?" Zara added, her investigative instincts finally overriding her hormones. "Each of these sites was used for binding rituals in the past. If someone's trying to recreate an ancient supernatural prison, they'd need a focus," Kai finished. "Something or someone with enough power to anchor the spell." Through their bond, Zara felt his growing unease. There was something he wasn't telling her, some knowledge he was holding back. "What is it?" she asked mentally. "Later," he replied through their connection. "When we're alone." Agent Chen's phone buzzed with an incoming message. She read it, frowned, then read it again. "We've got another site," she said grimly. "But this one's different. There's a survivor." 20 minutes later, they stood in what had once been a beautiful brownstone in the Upper East Side. Now it looked like a war zone. Walls scorched black, furniture reduced to charcoal, the acrid smell of supernatural fire hanging heavy in the air. "Witnesses say the fire burned for 3 hours, the responding officer told them. "Never spread to neighboring buildings, never triggered the smoke alarms. Whatever caused this wasn't natural." "Dragon fire," Kai said quietly, studying the burn patterns. "But dragons haven't been seen in North America for over a century." "That's what makes this interesting," Agent Torres said, leading them to the back bedroom. "Our survivor claims she saw who did this." The woman was in her 70s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed despite the trauma she'd endured. She looked up as they entered, and Zara felt a chill run down her spine. There was something familiar about those ancient eyes. "Mrs. Evangeline Thorne," Agent Chen said. "This is the Supernatural Crimes Task Force I mentioned. They'd like to ask you some questions about what happened here." The woman's gaze moved over each of them, lingering longest on Kai. "The Crimson Alpha," she said, her voice carrying an odd accent Zara couldn't place. "And his newly bonded mate. How fortuitous." "Ma'am," Zara said carefully, "can you tell us what you saw?" "I saw the past coming home to roost," Mrs. Thorne replied cryptically. "I saw the consequences of choices made long before you were born." Kai stepped forward, and Zara felt tension spike through their bond. "Who are you really?" Mrs. Thorne smiled, and suddenly she didn't look quite so frail. "Someone who's been waiting a very long time to meet you both. Tell me, Alpha, what do you know about the Shadow Moon Covenant?" The name hit Kai like a physical blow. Through their bond, Zara felt his shock, his fear, and underneath it all, a grief so profound it nearly brought her to her knees. "The Shadow Moon Covenant was destroyed 50 years ago," Kai said, his voice carefully controlled. Everyone knows that. Do they? Mrs. Thorne's smile widened. Or is that simply what we wanted people to believe? Agent Chen stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to be more specific. What is the Shadow Moon Covenant? The most powerful supernatural alliance in recorded history, Zara said slowly, pieces of old research clicking into place. 7 ancient bloodlines working together to maintain the balance between the supernatural and human worlds. Until they were betrayed by one of their own, Mrs. Thorne added. Until greed and ambition destroyed everything they'd built. Through their bond, Zara felt Kai's emotional walls slam into place. Whatever Mrs. Thorne was talking about, it was connected to secrets he'd been carrying for years. That has nothing to do with these ritual sites, Agent Torres said impatiently. Doesn't it? Mrs. Thorne pulled out a tablet and showed them a photograph that made Zara's blood run cold. It was the same ritual pattern they'd been tracking, but this image was clearly decades old. This is the binding circle the Shadow Moon Covenant used to imprison the rogue dragon Pyrithax in 1973. The same circle someone is now trying to recreate. Why would anyone want to free a rogue dragon? Chin demanded. Not free, Mrs. Thorne corrected. Control. Pyrithax was the most powerful supernatural creature ever captured. In the right hands, his fire could level entire cities. In the wrong hands, it could start a war between supernaturals and humans, Zara finished. A war that would require strong leadership to navigate, Mrs. Thorne agreed. Leadership that might be willing to sacrifice individual freedoms for the greater good. The implications were staggering. Someone was orchestrating events to create chaos, positioning themselves to seize power in the aftermath. Who's behind this? Kai asked, his voice deadly quiet. Mrs. Thorne's expression grew sad. Someone you trusted. Someone you loved. Someone who should have protected you instead of using you. Before anyone could ask what she meant, the building shook with a tremendous impact. Outside, car alarms began wailing, and through the broken windows, they could see people running in panic. Phase 2 has begun, Mrs. Thorne said calmly. I'm afraid your time for questions has run out. The ceiling exploded inward, raining debris and supernatural fire. Through the hole, a massive shape descended, scales gleaming like obsidian, wings that blocked out the sun, eyes like molten gold. Pyrithax had been freed. Everyone out, Agent Chen shouted, but her voice was lost in the dragon's earth-shaking roar. The creature's attention fixed on Kai, and Zara felt her mate's terror spike through their bond. Not fear of the dragon, fear of what its presence meant. It's not possible, Kai breathed. The binding circle was perfect. No one had the power to break it except a member of the original Shadow Moon Covenant, Mrs. Thorne finished. Someone with the authority to modify the ancient spells. Who? Zara demanded, but she was already putting the pieces together. The coordination of attacks. The intimate knowledge of supernatural law enforcement. The way someone had been watching their relationship from the beginning. Mrs. Thorne's next words confirmed her worst fears. Agent Sarah Chun was Evangeline Shadowmoon before she joined the FBI. The last surviving member of the most powerful supernatural family in history. Zara spun toward Agent Chun, but the woman she'd trusted was already changing. Her professional facade melted away, revealing something ancient and infinitely dangerous. Hello, children, Chun said, her voice now carrying harmonics that spoke of centuries of accumulated power. It's time you learned the truth about why you were really brought together. Pyrithax landed on the building's roof with enough force to crack the foundation. His massive head appeared in the hole above them, golden eyes fixing on Kai with unmistakable recognition. My dear Alpha, Chin continued, did you really think your father's alliance with the Shadow Moon Covenant ended with his death? Did you think your own bloodline was just a coincidence? Through their bond, Zara felt Kai's world crumbling as hidden truths came to light. You're Shadow Moon, he said, his voice hollow with betrayal. My father worked for you. Worked with us, Chin corrected. Until he became unreliable. Until he started putting his pack's interests above the greater supernatural community's needs. So you had him killed. I had him retired, Chin said mildly. And I arranged for his son to grow up believing he was choosing his own path, never knowing he was following a destiny we'd planned for him decades in advance. Zara's mind reeled as the scope of the manipulation became clear. The warehouse raid. Our meeting. The mate bond. All carefully orchestrated, Chin confirmed. Do you think it was coincidence that brought you to that warehouse at precisely the right moment? That led you to the one supernatural criminal whose capture would advance your career while giving us access to the underground networks we needed to monitor? The mate bond can't be faked, Kai said desperately. No, but it can be encouraged. Chen's smile was terrifying in its warmth. A little supernatural pheromone manipulation, some carefully timed encounters, the right stressors applied at the right moments. Nature provided the foundation, but we gave it a nudge in the right direction. The betrayal hit Zara like a physical blow. Everything she'd felt, everything she'd believed about their connection. No, Kai's voice echoed fiercely through their bond. Feel it, Zara. Feel what's between us right now. That's real. That's ours. And he was right. Whatever Chen had done to manipulate their first meeting, the love flowing between them now was pure and unshakable. The bond had grown beyond whatever artificial influences had shaped its beginning. Why? Zara asked. Why go to all this trouble? Because the world is changing, Chen said. Human technology is advancing faster than supernatural adaptation. Soon, they'll have weapons that can kill even the strongest of us. The only way our people survive is if we control the transition. By starting a war. By winning a war before it begins. Chen gestured to Pyrithax, who was watching the conversation with ancient intelligence. Fear unites humans like nothing else. A dragon loose in Manhattan, controlled by supernatural terrorists, will give the government all the justification it needs to implement the registration and containment protocols we've been developing. Registration protocols, Agent Torres said slowly. You mean concentration camps? I mean survival, Chen snapped, her mask finally slipping completely. I mean ensuring that supernatural persons have a future, even if that future requires difficult choices. You're talking about genocide, Zara breathed. I'm talking about evolution. Chen pulled out a device that looked like a modified tablet. Every supernatural creature in the city will have a choice, submit to our authority, or face the consequences. She touched the screen, and Pyrithax's roar shook the building again. But this time, Zara heard something else in the sound. Pain, rage, the fury of a creature being controlled against its will. You're torturing him, Kai said, understanding flooding his voice. I'm directing him, Chen corrected. The same way I've been directing both of you. That was her mistake. The mate bond between Zara and Kai had grown beyond anything Chen could have anticipated. Their connection was no longer just supernatural attraction. It was a joining of souls, a merging of purpose that made them far more than the sum of their parts. They moved as one. Zara tackled Chen while Kai lunged for the control device. The federal agent was faster and stronger than any human should have been, but she was also overconfident. She'd been pulling strings for so long, she'd forgotten that sometimes the puppets cut their own lines. The control device flew across the room, shattering against the wall. Above them, Pyrithax's roar changed from pain to pure rage as his mind was freed from supernatural compulsion. You have no idea what you've done, Chen snarled, her form beginning to shift into something that was only vaguely human. We've set him free, Zara said, rolling away as Chen's claws raked the air where her throat had been. A rogue dragon, loose in one of the most populated cities in the world. Chen laughed, her voice taking on inhuman harmonics. You've just guaranteed the war I wanted to prevent. Through the hole in the ceiling, they could see Pyrithax spreading his wings, preparing to take flight over Manhattan. In minutes, he would be visible to millions of people, captured on thousands of cameras, impossible to deny or cover up. The supernatural world was about to be exposed in the most catastrophic way possible. Not if we stop him first, Kai said grimly. How? Zara demanded. We don't have the power to contain a rogue dragon. No, Kai agreed, his amber eyes meeting hers through their bond. But we might have the power to reason with one. Chapter 9. Pyrithax was a force of nature given form. Zara had seen plenty of supernatural creatures in her time with the task force, but nothing had prepared her for the sheer presence of an ancient dragon. Even crouched on the brownstone's roof, his massive form seemed to dwarf the surrounding buildings. Scales the size of dinner plates caught the afternoon light like black mirrors, and when he turned his head to look down at them through the broken ceiling, his golden eyes held the weight of centuries. You freed me, the dragon said, his voice a bass rumble that she felt in her bones. Why? Because what Chen was doing to you is wrong, Kai replied, stepping forward despite every survival instinct screaming at him to run. Because no creature should be enslaved. Pyrithax's massive head tilted, studying Kai with predatory interest. You are crimson blood. I can smell your father on you. Through their bond, Zara felt Kai's complex emotions, grief, anger, and something that might have been hope. You knew Victor Crimson? He asked. I knew him well. Pyrithax's voice carried notes of old affection and older pain. He was the one who convinced me to allow the Shadow Moon Covenant to bind me 50 years ago. What? Your father told me it was temporary, the dragon continued, his golden eyes growing distant with memory. A strategic imprisonment to prevent a larger conflict. He said the binding would last only until the supernatural world was ready to coexist openly with humanity. Zara felt the pieces of the conspiracy clicking into place. But Chen never intended to free you. The Shadow Moon bitch intended to use me as a weapon, Pyrithax snarled, his fury shaking the building. To terrify humans into accepting supernatural registration. To start a war that would end with our people in chains. We won't let that happen, Kai said firmly. Won't you? Pyrithax spread his wings, blotting out the sun. I am free now, young Alpha. Free and angry and tired of being controlled. Perhaps it's time humans learned to fear us properly. That's exactly what Chen wants, Zara said desperately. If you attack the city, you'll prove every anti-supernatural bigot right. You'll give them the excuse they need to declare war on all of us. And why should I care about the fate of other supernatural creatures? Pyrithax's voice was cold as winter wind. They allowed me to remain bound for 50 years. They forgot I existed. Because my father didn't, Kai said quietly. He spent his entire life trying to find a way to free you safely. Every alliance he made, every compromise he accepted, it was all part of a plan to honor the promise he'd made to you. Pyrithax went very still. Explain. The Crimson Fong Pack's activities weren't random crime, Kai continued, his voice gaining strength. They were strategic operations designed to weaken Chen's network from the inside. My father was gathering information, building alliances, preparing for the day when he could expose the Shadow Moon Covenant's true agenda. Then why didn't he free me himself? Because Chen killed him before he could finish the job, Kai said, raw pain bleeding through his words. But she made one mistake. She thought I was too young and too idealistic to continue his work. Through their bond, Zara felt the truth of Kai's words, but also something more. A hidden knowledge he'd been carrying. A secret that went to the heart of everything. There's more, she said. Something you haven't told me. Kai's amber eyes met hers, and through their connection, she felt his love, his trust, and his fear of how she'd react to what he was about to reveal. My father left me something, he said quietly, hidden in the pack's most secure vault. Documents, recordings, evidence of everything Chen has done over the past 50 years. Evidence that could destroy her, Pyrithax said, understanding dawning in his ancient voice. Evidence that could save all of us, Kai corrected. But only if we're smart about how we use it. Below them, they could hear sirens approaching. The authorities were responding to reports of structural damage and possible terrorist activity. Soon, the building would be swarming with first responders who had no idea they were walking into a supernatural crisis. We need to get Pyrithax out of here, Zara said. Somewhere safe where we can plan our next move. The old subway tunnels, Kai suggested. There are abandoned sections that go deep enough to hide a dragon. And then, Pyrithax asked. Then we expose Chun for what she really is, Zara said. We show the world that the real threat to supernatural human relations isn't creatures like you. It's people like her who want to profit from fear and division. Pyrithax considered this for a long moment, his massive head swaying as he weighed their words against his own rage and pain. You would trust me not to burn your city while you gather your evidence? He asked finally. Yes, Kai said without hesitation. Even knowing that I could reduce Manhattan to ash before your authorities could stop me? Especially knowing that, Zara added. Because choosing not to use power is what separates heroes from monsters. Something shifted in Pyrithax's golden eyes. A spark of something that might have been respect. Your father would be proud, he told Kai. Very well. I will trust you as I once trusted him. But if you betray that trust, we won't, Kai said firmly. Pyrithax launched himself into the air with a sound like thunder, his massive wings carrying him away from the brownstone and toward the hidden tunnels beneath the city. From the street below, witnesses would see only a dark shape against the clouds, easily dismissed as a helicopter or unusual aircraft. He's buying us time, Zara said, watching the dragon disappear into the urban skyline. Time we need to use wisely, Agent Torres said behind them. They spun to find him standing in the doorway, his weapon drawn but lowered. His expression was grim but not hostile. How much did you hear? Zara asked. Enough to know that Agent Chen isn't who she claimed to be, Torres replied. Enough to know that we've all been played. Are you going to arrest us? Torres holstered his weapon. I'm going to help you stop her. Whatever Chen's planning, it's bigger than just one rogue dragon. She's been positioning federal resources for months, building a supernatural containment infrastructure that goes way beyond anything Congress authorized. Containment infrastructure? Detention facilities, Torres said grimly. Designed to hold supernatural persons indefinitely without trial. She's been selling it as a national security measure. But after what I just heard, it's a concentration camp system, Kai finished. Exactly. And if Pyrothax had gone on a rampage through Manhattan, it would have given her all the justification she needed to activate it. Zara felt the scope of Chen's manipulation expanding in her mind. Not just their mate bond, not just Pyrothax's imprisonment, but an entire shadow infrastructure designed to enslave the supernatural community. We need that evidence, she said. Whatever your father left you, Kai, we need it now. It's not going to be easy to retrieve, Kai warned. Chen will have figured out by now that we're not going to cooperate. She'll be watching the packed territories, waiting for us to make a move. Then we don't go to the packed territories, Torres said. We bring the pack to us. Before either of them could ask what he meant, his phone rang. The conversation was brief, conducted in careful code, but when he hung up, his expression was satisfied. Federal marshals just raided Chen's private office, he said. Officially, it's part of an ongoing investigation into financial irregularities in the supernatural crimes budget. Unofficially, it's a fishing expedition to see what we can find. Will that be enough to stop her? Zara asked. Not even close, Torres admitted. Chen's too smart to keep the really damaging evidence anywhere we could find it legally. But it will distract her long enough for you to retrieve your father's files. Kai was already pulling out his phone, texting rapidly. I'm calling in the pack. If we're going to do this, we do it right. 20 minutes later, they stood in the parking garage of a federal building, watching a convoy of motorcycles emerge from the urban twilight. The Crimson Fong pack in full force. 24 wolves riding machines that purred with barely contained power. Jesus, Torres muttered. They look like something out of a movie. They look like family, Kai corrected, his voice warm with affection. The lead rider pulled off her helmet, revealing a woman in her 40s with silver-streaked hair and eyes like molten amber. She moved with the fluid grace of a born predator, but when she saw Kai, her expression softened with maternal warmth. Hello, nephew, she said. I understand you've been busy. Aunt Lydia, Kai replied, moving forward to embrace her. Thank you for coming. Your pack, she said simply. And according to your message, you've finally claimed your mate. Her gaze moved to Zara, studying her with the intensity of an alpha evaluating a potential threat. Through their bond, Zara felt Kai's confidence in her, his certainty that she belonged with them. Zara Blackthorne, she said, extending her hand. Lydia's grip was firm, her handshake lasting just long enough to assess strength and character. Lydia Crimson, Victor's sister and current pack beta. Welcome to the family. The simple acceptance brought unexpected tears to Zara's eyes. After days of deception and manipulation, the pack's straightforward loyalty felt like coming home. We don't have much time, Kai said. Chen will realize what we're planning soon enough. Then let's not keep her waiting, Lydia said, her smile sharp as broken glass. It's time the Shadow Moon Covenant learned what happens when they threaten the Crimson Fangs. As the pack prepared to move out, Zara caught Kai's arm. Whatever we find in those files, she said quietly, whatever secrets your father was keeping, it doesn't change anything between us. Doesn't it? His amber eyes searched hers. What if everything you think you know about me is wrong? Then I'll learn who you really are, she said firmly. And I'll love that person too. The kiss he gave her tasted like promises and desperate hope. Through their bond, she felt his love, his fear, and his determination to see this through no matter the cost. Together, he asked. Together, she confirmed. But as they prepared to face Chen's final gambit, neither of them saw the figure watching from the federal building's upper floors. Agent Sarah Chun, her ancient eyes cold with fury and her hands already moving to activate the contingency plans she'd spent decades preparing. The war for the supernatural world's future was about to begin in earnest. Chapter 10. The Crimson Fong Pack Vault was hidden beneath a century-old cathedral in Brooklyn. Zara followed Kai through the narrow stone passages, their way lit by torches that burned with supernatural fire that gave off no smoke. Around them, pack members moved with silent efficiency, their enhanced senses alert for any sign of Chen's forces. "Your father built this?" she asked, running her fingers along walls carved with protective symbols. "My great-grandfather started it," Kai replied, his voice echoing softly in the confined space. Each generation added to it. By the time my father took over, it was the most secure supernatural archive on the East Coast. They reached a heavy oak door bound with iron and etched with runes that seemed to shift and writhe in the torchlight. Kai pressed his palm against a specific symbol, and Zara felt the mate bond resonate as ancient magic recognized his bloodline. The lock clicked open with a sound like distant thunder. Inside, the vault was a treasure trove of supernatural history. Shelves lined the walls, filled with artifacts, scrolls, and modern filing cabinets containing decades of carefully gathered intelligence. At the center of the room stood a massive desk, its surface covered with maps, photographs, and documents. "There," Kai said, pointing to a steel briefcase sitting beneath the desk. "Everything he died trying to protect." As he reached for the case, Lydia's voice echoed from the passage behind them. "We've got company. Chen's people found us." The sound of gunfire erupted from the tunnels above, followed by the distinctive snarls of wolves in combat. Through their bond, Zara felt Kai's pack loyalty warring with his need to complete their mission. "Go," she said firmly. "Help your pack. I'll get the briefcase." "Zara, they need their alpha," she interrupted. "And I need to know what we're fighting for." Kai's amber eyes burned with love and trust as he handed her the vault keys. "Whatever you find in there, remember that I love you." He kissed her fiercely, then shifted into his hybrid form and bounded up the stone steps toward the battle above. Through their bond, she felt his wolf join the pack's unified consciousness, their individual minds becoming part of something larger and more powerful. Alone in the vault, Zara opened the briefcase with hands that only trembled slightly. The contents made her blood run cold. Photographs of Chun with Nazi officials during World War II. Documents proving she'd been manipulating supernatural registration programs since the 1940s. Financial records showing her funding for human supremacist groups and anti-supernatural terrorist organizations. But worst of all were the medical files. Chin hadn't just been manipulating supernatural creatures politically. She'd been experimenting on them. Hundreds of detailed records documented surgical procedures, psychological conditioning, and genetic modifications designed to create the perfect supernatural soldiers. "My God," Zara breathed, scanning page after page of atrocities. The final document in the case was a letter in Victor Crimson's handwriting, addressed to his son. "Kai, if you're reading this, then I'm dead and the burden of stopping Evangeline Shadowmoon has fallen to you. I'm sorry for that. No father wants to leave his child such a dark inheritance." The woman calling herself Sarah Chun is over 200 years old. She survived the purges that destroyed the other Shadowmoon families by embracing the very human hatred that killed her people. She believes that supernatural creatures can only survive by becoming the monsters humans fear we are. She's wrong. The future belongs to those who can bridge the gap between species, who can show both sides that cooperation is stronger than conquest. I believe you and your mate will be the key to that future. Trust in your bond. Trust in your pack. And when the time comes, trust in the one choice I never had the courage to make. The evidence in this case will destroy Chen's network, but only if it reaches the right people. Agent Torres can be trusted. His sister was one of Chen's victims. Dr. Sarah Martinez at the CDC has been investigating supernatural medical experiments for years. Senator Patricia Walsh chairs the committee overseeing supernatural affairs. But be careful who else you trust. Chen's influence runs deeper than you know. I love you, son. Your mother would be proud of the man you've become. Victor. Tears blurred Zara's vision as she finished reading. Through their bond, she felt Kai's growing exhaustion as the battle above intensified. They were running out of time. She gathered the most damaging documents and started toward the tunnel entrance, but a familiar voice stopped her cold. "Going somewhere, detective?" Agent Chun stood in the vault doorway, her professional facade completely gone. She wore tactical gear that gleamed with supernatural enhancements, and her eyes held the cold fire of someone who'd lived too long and seen too much. "The evidence against you is already uploaded to the cloud," Zara said, clutching the briefcase protectively. "Destroying me won't stop the truth from coming out. Won't it?" Chen's smile was terrifying in its warmth. Poor Detective Blackthorne, killed in a tragic supernatural terrorist attack, along with her criminal mate and his entire pack. Such a shame that we couldn't save them from the rogue dragon they foolishly tried to control. Understanding hit Zara like a physical blow. "Pyrithax, you're going to frame him for our deaths." "I'm going to use his rage to justify everything I've spent decades building," Chen corrected. "When the world sees what an uncontrolled supernatural creature can do, they'll beg for the safety my registration programs provide." "You're insane." "I'm a survivor," Chen snapped, her mask finally slipping completely. "I watched my entire family burn because humans feared what they didn't understand. I won't let that happen again. So you'll make it happen to everyone else instead. I'll make sure supernatural creatures never again depend on human tolerance for their survival." Chen raised her weapon, its barrel gleaming with silver inlay designed to be lethal to most supernatural beings. Starting with eliminating the idealistic fools who think coexistence is possible. The gunshot echoed through the vault like thunder. But it wasn't Chen who fired. Agent Torres stood behind her, his smoking weapon pointed at the ceiling where his warning shot had shattered an ancient stone carving. "Step away from Detective Blackthorne," he commanded. Chen spun toward him, fury distorting her features. "You dare." "I dare a lot of things," Torres interrupted, "including arresting a fellow federal agent for treason, murder, and crimes against humanity. You have no authority. I have a federal warrant signed by a judge who's very interested in your financial records," Torres said calmly. "Turns out funding terrorist organizations is still illegal, even if you've been doing it for 70 years. Chen's laugh was like breaking glass. "You think legal proceedings matter now? You think human law can touch me?" She began to change, her human form melting away to reveal something that was ancient, powerful, and utterly without mercy. Her true shape was beautiful and terrible, tall, ethereal, with silver hair that moved like living water and eyes that held the cold fire of stars. "I am Evangeline Shadowmoon," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that spoke of old magic and older pain. "I am the last of my line, the final guardian of supernatural supremacy, and I will not be stopped by mortals and their naive dreams of peace." Power erupted from her transformed body, sending Torres flying into the stone wall. But before she could turn that supernatural force on Zara, the vault filled with the sound of approaching wolves. Kai burst into the chamber in full hybrid form, his pack flowing behind him like a tide of fur and fury. But they weren't attacking. They were protecting, forming a defensive circle around Zara that spoke of absolute loyalty. "Stand down, Chen," Kai said, his voice carrying alpha authority that made even the ancient sorceress pause. "It's over. The evidence is public. Your network is compromised. The only choice you have left is how this ends." "You're right," Chen said, her terrible beauty radiating cold satisfaction. "I do have a choice." She pulled out a device that looked like a modified smartphone and pressed a single button. Throughout the city, every supernatural creature Chen had ever tagged, monitored, or experimented on suddenly collapsed as hidden implants activated. The registration program she'd been building for decades wasn't just for tracking. It was for control. "Phase 3, she announced. "Every supernatural being in New York City is now under my direct command. They'll tear the city apart, human against supernatural, until only the strongest survive." Through their bond, Zara felt Kai's horror as he realized the scope of Chen's final gambit. Thousands of innocent supernatural creatures, turned into unwilling weapons against their human neighbors. "You're talking about genocide." Chapter 11. 2 weeks after the vault confrontation, Zara thought the worst was behind them. She was wrong. The call came at 3 a.m, jolting her awake from dreams of amber eyes and thunderstorm scents. Through their bond, she felt Kai's instant alertness as his enhanced hearing picked up the urgent tone before she'd even answered. "Blackthorne," she said, her voice rough with sleep. "Detective, this is Agent Martinez from the CDC." The woman's voice was tight with controlled panic. "We have a situation. A big one." Zara sat up, instantly awake. "What kind of situation?" The kind that involves every supernatural creature in a 50-mile radius suddenly developing symptoms we've never seen before. Fever, delirium, violent episodes. They're being brought to hospitals across the tri-state area. Through their bond, Kai's alarm spiked. He was already reaching for his clothes, his pack instincts responding to the threat even before he fully understood it. How many? Zara asked. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. And it's spreading fast. Agent Martinez paused. Detective, we need you and your partner here immediately. Some of the affected are saying your names. Our names. They're calling for the bonded alphas. Specifically you and Kai Crimson. Whatever's happening, they seem to think you can help them. 30 minutes later, Zara and Kai stood in the emergency room of Mount Sinai Hospital, surrounded by a chaos unlike anything she'd ever witnessed. Supernatural creatures in various stages of distress filled every available bed and floor space. Werewolves writhed in partial shifts they couldn't control. Vampires cowered from lights that shouldn't have bothered them. Fey creatures wept silver tears that turned to ash as they fell. Jesus, Kai breathed, his enhanced senses overwhelmed by the combined scent of pain and fear. It started about 6 hours ago, Dr. Zara Martinez explained, leading them through the overcrowded ward. Sudden onset, affecting only supernatural creatures. Human medical treatments aren't helping, and our usual supernatural medical consultants are among the afflicted. What about Chin? Zara asked. Has anyone contacted her? We tried. Her federal handlers say she's been in isolation for the past 48 hours, working on some kind of urgent project. Dr. Martinez's expression was grim. No one's been able to reach her. A chill ran down Zara's spine. Through their bond, she felt Kai's growing suspicion. This isn't a natural outbreak, he said quietly. Someone did this deliberately. But who? Chen's neutralized. Her network is dismantled. Her network, yes, Kai interrupted. But she mentioned other Shadow Moon survivors. What if one of them decided to take revenge for her cooperation with us? Before Zara could respond, a commotion erupted from the far end of the ward. A young werewolf, no more than 16, was convulsing on his bed, his partial shift cycling rapidly between human and wolf forms. Help him, his mother pleaded, grabbing Zara's arm. Please, you're the bonded pair everyone's talking about. They say you can fix this. Zara looked at the boy, then at Kai. Through their bond, she felt his uncertainty matching her own. They'd used their connection to override Chen's implants, but this was different. This wasn't technology. This was something organic, viral, spreading through supernatural biology like wildfire. We can try, Kai said finally. They approached the boy's bed carefully. The moment Zara's hand touched his arm, she gasped. Through her supernatural senses, she could feel the wrongness inside him, like a poison that attacked the very essence of what made him supernatural. It's not a disease, she whispered. It's a weapon, something designed to destabilize supernatural genetics. A biological weapon? Dr. Martinez asked. Worse, Kai said, his face pale as he processed what they were sensing. It's designed to burn out their supernatural abilities entirely, to make them permanently human. The implications hit the room like a bomb. Forced conversion of supernatural creatures wasn't just an attack. It was genocide of a different kind. The complete elimination of supernatural genetics from the human gene pool. Who would do this? Dr. Martinez demanded. Zara's phone buzzed with an incoming message from an unknown number. The text made her blood freeze. Greetings, Detective Blackthorne. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Cassius Shadowmoon, and I am Evangeline's older brother. She has become disappointingly soft in her old age. Fortunately, I am not burdened by her newfound sentimentality. You have 24 hours to deliver my sister to the coordinates I'm sending, or every supernatural creature in North America will lose their abilities permanently. Choose wisely. CS. Son of a bitch, Kai snarled, reading over her shoulder. Another Shadow Moon? Dr. Martinez asked. Chen's brother, Zara explained grimly. And apparently he doesn't approve of her reformation. Her phone buzzed again with GPS coordinates, pointing to an abandoned industrial complex in New Jersey. A third message followed immediately. Oh, and detective? Don't bother trying to contact my dear sister. She's currently indisposed, recovering from the rather unpleasant process of having her blood extracted from my little biological experiment. Family reunions can be so dramatic. He has Chun, Zara said, her mind racing through possibilities. He's using her blood as the base for the weapon. Shadow Moon blood is the key to supernatural genetics, Kai said, understanding dawning in his voice. If he's corrupted it somehow, turned it into a virus that attacks supernatural abilities, then only Shadow Moon blood can cure it, Dr. Martinez finished. Clean Shadow Moon blood, uncorrupted by whatever he's done to his sisters. Which means we need Chin alive and healthy, Zara said. And we need to stop Cassius before this spreads beyond the tri-state area. How long do we have? Kai asked. Dr. Martinez checked her tablet, her expression growing more grave by the minute. Based on the progression rate we're seeing, the virus will reach critical mass in about 18 hours. After that, the genetic damage becomes irreversible. Then we'd better get moving, Zara said, already heading for the exit. Wait, Dr. Martinez called after them. You can't just walk into an obvious trap. This Cassius has had time to prepare, to set up whatever defenses he wants. Then we won't walk, Kai said, his amber eyes gleaming with predatory intent. We'll hunt. As they left the hospital, Zara felt the weight of thousands of lives pressing down on her shoulders. Every supernatural creature in the region was counting on them to find a solution, to save abilities and identities that were being systematically destroyed. The pack, Kai said as they climbed into their car. We'll need backup. Will they be affected too? Not yet. The virus seems to be spreading through urban areas first, probably through water or air systems. The pack's territory is mostly rural. They should be clean for now. Zara's phone rang. Lydia's name appeared on the screen. Aunt Lydia, Kai answered, putting the call on speaker. Kai, thank the moon you're safe. We've been getting reports from the city packs, creatures losing their abilities, going completely human overnight. Lydia's voice was tight with controlled panic. Please tell me you have a plan. We're working on it, Zara said. But we're going to need the pack's help. You have it. All of it. What do you need? Everything, Kai said grimly. We're going to war. 2 hours later, they stood in the Crimson Fong compound's main hall, surrounded by the largest gathering of supernatural creatures Zara had ever seen. Not just wolves, vampires, fae, werbears, and others had come in response to Lydia's calls. Word of the virus had spread through the supernatural community like wildfire, and everyone understood that this was an existential threat. The target is here, Kai said, pointing to the industrial complex on the tactical map. Cassius Shadow Moon has Chun prisoner and is using her blood to fuel a virus that strips supernatural abilities permanently. How do we stop it? Asked Elena, a vampire elder whose normally pale complexion was even whiter than usual. We get to Chun, we neutralize Cassius, and we synthesize a cure from clean Shadow Moon blood, Zara explained. But it won't be easy. Cassius has had decades to prepare for this moment. What kind of defenses are we looking at? Asked Marcus, who'd arrived with a contingent of supernatural-friendly NYPD officers. Unknown, Kai admitted. But we have to assume he's prepared for everything. Conventional weapons, supernatural attacks, even mate bond interference. Then we give him something he's not prepared for, Lydia said, her alpha authority filling the room. We give him unity. She gestured to the assembled creatures. Traditional enemies working together, old territorial disputes set aside in the face of a common threat. When has a Shadow Moon ever faced the united supernatural community? She continued. They've always relied on division, on playing different species against each other. Tonight, we show them what cooperation looks like. A chorus of agreement rose from the assembled crowd. Howls, hisses, and calls that spoke of determination and shared purpose. 3 teams, Zara said, taking charge. Infiltration, distraction, and extraction. We hit him from multiple angles, keep him off balance, and get Chin out alive. I'll lead the distraction team, Elena volunteered. Vampires are good at making dramatic entrances. We're bears on extraction, rumbled a massive man whose human form barely contained his supernatural strength. We're good at breaking things. That leaves infiltration for us, Kai said, his amber eyes meeting Zara's. Together, she confirmed. As the various teams prepared to move out, Zara found herself standing alone with Kai in the compound's ancient chapel. Moonlight streamed through stained glass windows that depicted the history of supernatural creatures. Their struggles, their triumphs, their endless hope for a better future. Whatever happens tonight, Kai said quietly, I need you to know that these past months with you have been the best of my life. Don't talk like that, Zara said, moving into his arms. We're going to stop Cassius, cure the virus, and go home to plan our wedding. And if we don't, then we go down fighting for something worth dying for." She looked up into his eyes, seeing her own determination reflected there. "But I'd rather live for something worth living for." His kiss tasted like promises and desperate hope, like all the tomorrows they still planned to share. When they broke apart, Zara felt the mate bond humming between them, stronger than ever. Whatever Cassius had planned, he was about to learn what two souls joined in perfect unity could accomplish. "Time to go," Lydia called from the chapel doorway. As they prepared to leave, Zara caught sight of their reflection in the chapel's polished surfaces. Two figures moving in perfect synchronization, their bond visible in the way they anticipated each other's movements. Cassius' shadow moon was about to face not just the supernatural community's wrath, but the full power of a perfectly matched pair. Chapter 12. The abandoned industrial complex looked like something out of a horror movie. Zara crouched behind a rusted shipping container, watching Cassius Shadowmoon's fortress through night vision binoculars. What had once been a chemical processing plant had been transformed into something far more sinister. The buildings were covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with malevolent energy. 11 guard towers, she whispered into her comm unit, each one manned by something that doesn't read as human on thermal imaging. "Constructs," Kai replied from his position 50 yards to her left. Cassius was always good at creating artificial servants. They'll be strong, fast, and completely loyal. Any weaknesses? They're powered by the same corrupted shadow moon blood that's fueling the virus. Take out the power source and they'll collapse. Through their bond, Zara felt Kai's grim determination mixed with an undercurrent of old fear. Cassius wasn't just Chen's brother. He was someone who'd haunted Kai's nightmares since childhood. "Elena's team is in position," came the vampire elder's voice through the comm, ready to make some noise. "Bear squad standing by," rumbled the Werbear Alpha. "We see the extraction point." Zara took a deep breath, centering herself in the bond she shared with Kai. Whatever happened in the next hour would determine the future of every supernatural creature in North America. "All teams go," she commanded. The night exploded into chaos. Elena's vampires hit the front gates like a supernatural hurricane, their enhanced speed turning them into blurs of motion that the construct guards couldn't track. At the same time, the Werbears began their assault on the rear buildings, their massive forms smashing through reinforced walls like they were made of paper. "Now," Kai said. They moved together, using the distraction to slip through a drainage tunnel that led directly under the main facility. The tunnel was claustrophobic and rank with the smell of chemicals and something worse, the scent of corrupted magic that made Zara's wolf whine with unease. "He's in the main laboratory," Kai said, his enhanced senses guiding them through the maze of underground passages. "Third floor, center of the building." "How can you tell?" "The smell of shadow moon blood is strongest in that direction. And something else, fear. Chen's afraid, but she's still alive." They emerged from the tunnel system into a loading dock that had been converted into some kind of ritual space. Symbols covered every surface, drawn in what looked like silver paint mixed with blood. At the center of the room stood a massive apparatus that hummed with supernatural energy. "The distribution system," Zara breathed. "He's been pumping the virus through the building's ventilation, letting it spread on the wind." "Not just the building," Kai said grimly, pointing to a series of pipes that led outside. "He's connected it to the city's air filtration system. In a few hours, the virus will reach every supernatural creature on the East Coast." The sound of footsteps echoed from the stairwell above them. Multiple sets, moving with the mechanical precision of constructs rather than living beings. "We've got company," Zara whispered. The first construct that appeared in the doorway was a nightmare fusion of human and machine, its flesh replaced with gleaming metal, and its eyes glowing with the sick light of corrupted magic. It moved with inhuman speed, but Zara was ready for it. Her tranquilizer dart found its mark just as Kai's claws raked across its power core. The construct collapsed in a shower of sparks and dissolving flesh. "Two more coming," Kai warned. These were different, larger, more heavily armored, with weapons that sparked with supernatural electricity. They attacked in perfect coordination, forcing Zara and Kai to work as a team to survive. Through their bond, they moved like dancers, each anticipating the other's actions. When Zara rolled left, Kai was already moving right. When he struck high, she struck low. The constructs were strong, but they weren't prepared for opponents who fought as a single entity. "The stairs," Zara said as the last construct fell. "We need to reach Chen before." Cassius Shadowmoon's laughter echoed through the building's intercom system. "Welcome, children," he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "I was wondering when you'd arrive. Please come upstairs. I have someone who's very eager to see you." They had no choice but to follow his invitation. The stairwell was lined with more symbols, these ones designed to interfere with supernatural senses. By the time they reached the third floor, Zara felt disconnected and disoriented, her bond with Kai muffled but not broken. The laboratory doors stood open, revealing a scene from a scientific nightmare. Chen hung suspended in the center of the room, her body connected to a series of tubes and machines that were slowly draining her blood. She was conscious but weak, her normally perfect composure replaced by exhaustion and pain. "Evangeline," Cassius said fondly, looking up from a bank of monitors that showed the virus's spread across the region. "Look who's come to rescue you." He was tall and elegant, with silver hair and eyes like winter ice. Unlike his sister's professional facade, Cassius made no attempt to hide his supernatural nature. Power radiated from him like heat from a furnace, and when he moved, reality seemed to bend slightly around him. "Cassius," Chen whispered. "Please. They're innocent." "Innocent?" Cassius laughed, the sound like breaking crystal. "These are the creatures who corrupted you, sister, who made you forget your duty to our people." "Our people are dead," Chen said weakly. "We're the last ones. There's no point in. There's every point." Cassius's mask slipped, revealing the madness underneath. "The Shadowmoon legacy dies with us unless we ensure supernatural supremacy. These mongrels have poisoned your mind with their talk of coexistence." "Let her go," Zara said, raising her weapon. "She's done nothing but help us." "Help you destroy everything we built," Cassius corrected. "Help you weaken supernatural creatures until they're nothing but humans with party tricks." "We're trying to build a better world," Kai said. "You're trying to build a weaker world." Cassius gestured to the monitors, showing the virus's progression. "Look at them, scrambling in their hospitals, begging for human medical help. This is what your cooperation has led to: supernatural creatures so dependent on humans that they can't even cure themselves. Because you're killing them. I'm showing them what they'll become without proper leadership." Cassius pressed a button, and the blood extraction from Chen increased. Every drop of her corrupted blood feeds the virus. In 6 hours, it will reach critical mass. Every supernatural creature in North America will be reduced to baseline human genetics. Unless they submit to my authority. Unless they accept that survival requires strength, not sentiment. Cassius's smile was terrible in its warmth. "I'm prepared to offer them a choice: serve the new Shadowmoon Order, or lose their supernatural nature forever." "That's not a choice," Zara said. "That's slavery. Slavery with purpose is better than freedom that leads to extinction." Through their bond, Zara felt Kai's growing rage, his wolf demanding action. But she also felt his tactical mind working, analyzing the laboratory, looking for weaknesses. "You know what your problem is, Cassius?" Kai said conversationally. "You think power is about control. Isn't it? Real power is about trust." Kai took a step forward, and Cassius's constructs moved to intercept him. "Real power is about inspiring people to choose to follow you, not forcing them to submit." Pretty words from someone who's about to watch his entire species disappear. "Are we?" Kai's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Because I think you've made a fundamental miscalculation." That's when the explosion started. Elena's vampires had found the virus distribution system. The Werewolves had located the power grid. And throughout the building, supernatural creatures were working together to dismantle Cassius's decades of preparation. "Impossible," Cassius breathed, staring at the monitors as his carefully planned operation fell apart. "They're too disorganized, too fractured." "They were," Zara agreed, "until you gave them a reason to unite." The laboratory door exploded inward, and Lydia let a flood of supernatural creatures into the room. Wolves, vampires, fey bears, all of them moving with the coordinated precision of a single pack. "Cassius Shadowmoon," Lydia said, her alpha authority filling the space. "You are charged with crimes against the supernatural community. Surrender now, and you'll face justice. Resist, and you'll face us." For a moment, Cassius looked genuinely shocked. Then his expression shifted to something like respect. "Magnificent," he said. "Absolutely magnificent. This is what supernatural unity looks like when properly motivated. Then you'll surrender? Zara asked. Surrender? Cassius laughed. My dear child, this is exactly what I wanted. You've proven that supernatural creatures can work together when threatened. Now imagine what they could accomplish under proper leadership. The temperature in the room plummeted as Cassius revealed his true supernatural nature. Ice formed on every surface, and his human disguise melted away to show something ancient and infinitely powerful. I am the last true Shadow Moon, he declared, his voice carrying harmonics that spoke of old magic and older authority. I will not be defeated by children playing at Unity. Power erupted from his transformed body, sending most of the rescue team flying. But Zara and Kai stood firm, their mate bond shielding them from the worst of his supernatural assault. Together, Kai said. Together, Zara agreed. They opened their bond completely, letting their combined will flow out to every supernatural creature in the room. But this time, instead of overriding artificial controls, they were offering something much simpler. The chance to choose unity over division, cooperation over conquest. One by one, the other creatures joined their mental network. Lydia's wolf, Elena's ancient hunger, the werebear's steady strength. All of them linking together in a web of shared purpose that grew stronger with each new connection. What are you doing? Cassius demanded, his power battering uselessly against their unified will. We're showing you what real power looks like, Zara said. The combined consciousness of dozens of supernatural creatures focused on a single goal. Stopping the virus, saving Chun, and proving that unity was stronger than any individual's ambition. Cassius's control over the laboratory equipment shattered under their assault. The virus distribution system shut down. The blood extraction stopped. And Chun, freed from her bonds, collapsed into Kai's arms. It's over, she whispered. The virus will stop spreading, but the damage that's already been done can be reversed, Dr. Martinez said, appearing in the doorway with a team of supernatural medical specialists. We've synthesized a cure from your uncorrupted blood samples. Everyone who's been affected can be healed. Cassius stared at them all, his ancient face cycling through emotions too complex to name. You've won, he said finally. But you have no idea what you've actually accomplished. We've saved thousands of lives, Zara said. You've proven that supernatural unity is possible, Cassius corrected. You've shown that when properly motivated, our people can work together toward common goals. Do you understand what that means? It means we can build a better future, Kai said. It means you can conquer anything you choose to, Cassius replied, including humanity, if you ever decide they're a threat to your survival. The implications hung in the air like a challenge. The same unity that had defeated Cassius could theoretically be turned against anyone who threatened the supernatural community. That's not who we are, Chin said firmly, struggling to her feet. That's not who we choose to be. Choice, Cassius said softly. Yes, I suppose it always comes down to choice. He looked around the room at the assembled supernatural creatures, his expression shifting from madness to something like wonder. You know what, sister? You might be right. Perhaps the old ways aren't the only ways. He smiled, and for the first time it looked genuine. I surrender. The words seemed to drain the last of his supernatural power. The ice in the room melted, the oppressive weight of his presence lifted, and suddenly he was just an old man who'd lost his way and found it again. The cure, Chin said urgently. How quickly can it be distributed? We're already working on it, Dr. Martinez assured her. Mass production started an hour ago. Everyone who's been affected will be back to normal within days. As federal agents moved in to take Cassius into custody, he paused beside Zara and Kai. You've accomplished something remarkable here, he said quietly. Something I didn't think was possible. Don't let anyone convince you to use it for the wrong reasons. We won't, Zara promised. See that you don't. Because the power you've awakened, the ability to unite our people across traditional boundaries, that's either going to save the supernatural world or destroy everything in its path. With that warning, he allowed himself to be led away, his madness replaced by a clarity that was almost more disturbing. Is it over? Kai asked as they watched the last of the cleanup crew's work. This part is, Chin said. But Cassius was right about one thing. We've proven that supernatural unity is possible. The question is what we do with that knowledge. Zara looked around the laboratory, now filled with creatures who'd been enemies for centuries working side by side to heal their community. We use it to build the future we want, she said firmly. A future where supernatural creatures don't have to choose between hiding and conquest. A future where different doesn't mean dangerous. A future where love wins, Kai added, his amber eyes meeting hers. Through their bond, Zara felt the echoes of every consciousness they'd touched, every creature who'd chosen unity over division. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure, the knowledge that they could call upon that kind of power again if needed. But it was also hopeful, because for the first time in supernatural history, every major species had worked together toward a common goal. And they'd won. The end.